Greetings, salutations, hello, and welcome to Dreadlocks Q&A episode 63. What is happening? Nature is coming alive. If you've got a question you'd like to submit for a future Dreadlocks Q&A video, you can do so by leaving it in the comment section below, starting your question with the word question. First question this week is from Hayden Douglas, and Hayden asks, my dreads are 1 day old and they are fuzzy and kind of loose at the root. What should I do? Okay, so the short and sort of true but not all that helpful answer is to wait another 364 days. Basically, when you start dreadlocks, you're not really having dreadlocks yet. I don't mean that in sort of a mean way, but it's like when you backcomb or you twist and rip, all you have is like a loose knotted section of hair, and so it's going to be loose, it's going to be fuzzy, it's going to take many months for those strands of hair to lock up, and so it's completely normal and expected that over the first few months, like the first year, they're not going to be all that great, and that's why dreadlocks are referred to as like young dreads or mature dreads. As long as you keep the dreadlocks clean, you separate them as and when they need it, and you give them the time and you're patient with them, they should, you know, sort themselves out over time. But you just kind of have to get through those early months where they're not, you know, all that great. Yanis Zero, the Zero Nerd Zero Hand Zero. Question: my hair is naturally very curly. If I were to get dreadlocks and eventually want to take them out, would this change my hair texture, or would it still be curly? Thanks. If you start dreadlocks with curly hair, the mature dreadlocks will look pretty much the same as if you'd started them with straight hair. You don't get like straight dreadlocks or curly dreadlocks. But if you then do come too late to take the dreadlocks back out again, you will get your regular, normal, unlocked hair back, which, if it was curly to begin with, should be curly when you take the dreadlocks back out again. Nazgul Nebulosa. Question: I've got free-formed unsectioned dreads that are 1 year old, and since they're unsectioned, they've grown how they've wanted, which has resulted in one bald spot because one big dread has consumed too much hair. I know that you don't recommend cutting dreads in two, and I would like to know why, since I feel it's my only option. I really don't want to comb out the dread and start over since it's reached a year now. Unhappy face. People do split dreadlocks in half. I've split dreadlocks in half. It's not like the best thing to do though, because okay, when you have one solid dreadlock, you've got hair that's sort of waving all the way through, and that's your solid dreadlock. You've got hair that's attached to the root, you've got hair that's connected all the way through. If you then come to try and split a dreadlock, you're not going to end up with two separate dreads that are full of solid hair like that. You're going to be severing hairs through the middle, and you're going to end up with lots of hairs that are no longer connected to the root or the tip. The dreadlocks that you get after a split, while yes, there will be two, they can be a lot weaker than you may expect, and unless the dreadlock was really thick to begin with, the two weaker halves that you're left with can potentially fall apart. So while you can, you know, if you really need to, take a thick dreadlock and split it in half and end up with two dreadlocks, those two halves are going to be a lot weaker and a lot more likely to end up with sort of bad things happening to them than they would if they'd been sectioned that way originally. So you have to weigh up whether it's worth it to you to, you know, split them in half and then end up with two dreads that may hold up and last or may not, or whether it's worth combing out and restarting. I mean, if you're at 1 year, you're kind of on the borderline, I'd say. If your dreadlocks are less than 1 year, then it's probably better to brush it out, resection, and then you'd still end up with two solid dreadlocks. But, you know, I understand that when the dreadlocks are mature, you know, I've been there, when the dreadlocks are mature, you really don't want to have to brush out and start over. It's also worth mentioning that if you do split a dreadlock and later decide that you want to take the dreadlocks out, when you come to brush out the dreadlocks that have been split, there's like an incredibly high chance that everything will just brush out to nothing and you will have very little hair actually left to work with afterwards. So you have to sort of weigh it all up. Brianna Rose Eriguin. Question: Christian, what is your birth date? I turned 22 in June as well. Mine is the 19th. My birth date is the 3rd of June 92. Death Theme 13. Question: for the people who may be more nervous about damaging their hair from blow dryers, do you know of any other ways of drying your dreads after washing? I will link in the description to my blow drying dreadlocks video. Whether you blow dry your dreadlocks or not is going to be a personal decision. You have to weigh up like how easy or difficult it will be for you to dry your dreadlocks otherwise, and you know, whether you're particularly concerned about damaging your dreadlocks from the heat of a blow dryer. It's not something that particularly concerns me much. I would instead just, you know, not use the blow dryer on maximum heat and dry them slowly and more gradually rather than trying to cook them, because that just is better for drying the dreadlocks and less likely to damage the hair. With regards to drying your dreadlocks in other ways, of course, there's squeezing and shaking and using microfiber towels, but I kind of use all those anyway, and my dreadlocks would still take hours and hours, potentially like overnight. They would still be damp the next day if I didn't use a blow dryer, and you have to sort of weigh up whether it's worth giving the dreadlocks extreme periods of time to dry, which, you know, is not going to damage them potentially from the heat of a blow dryer, but may damage them from the fact that you may develop dread rot, mold, mildew, etc. from leaving the dreadlocks damp for extended periods of time. If you live somewhere that's really hot and sunny and you have the time to spend just sat out in the sun, then you can air dry them. For people that are not in a situation where you can spend vast amounts of time out in the sun, or you don't have the sun and you just need to get your dreadlocks dry and just get on with your day, then a lot of people are in a situation where blow drying is the only option, because there's not really a whole lot you can do with the dreadlocks until they are dry, because it's like they're damp. You need to get them dry so they don't become like moldy and nasty, and you can't really tie them up because then they'll stay damp for longer. So it's just sort of a balance that each individual person has to work out for themselves. Those are my questions for this week. If you like this video, found it helpful, useful, informative, you can click the like button. If you'd like to leave a question to be submitted for a future Q&A video, you can do so by leaving it in the comment section below, starting the question with the word question. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you again next time. Farewell.